Hare Krishna. So, by the grace of Prabhupada, we are going to again study the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And today we are going to begin with verse 1:536, first canto, chapter 5, text 36. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, greetings to Sri Prahlad. Hope you're doing well. So, here we go. This is verse 1:536. Kurvana jatra karmani bhagavat shikshaya sakrit grananti gunanamani krishnasyanusmaranti cha. So I'll read Prabhupada's translation for that verse, 1:536. While performing duties according to the orders of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him, his names, and his qualities. So Prabhupada writes in his purport, an expert devotee of the Lord can mold his life in such a way that while performing all kinds of duties, either for this or the next life, he can constantly remember the Lord's name, fame, qualities, etc. So let's look at the Sanskrit here, as we usually do. Kurvana jatra karmani. So kurvana is just means doing, yatra. In other words, while performing a yatra in this situation, karmani, activities. While performing activities, bhagavat shikshaya, a sakrit. Shiksha, like shikshastika, it means an instruction. Shiksha means an instruction. So bhagavat shikshaya, by the instruction of the Lord. By the Lord's instruction, by the Lord's teaching, performing activities asakrit, constantly. Grananti gunanamani, one takes or one accepts or one understands gunanamani, the qualities of the Lord, and namani, his names. So, Krishna's qualities are not material. It's, if you can, just 1 second, I apologize for this. I'll be right back. I want to turn the heater off so it doesn't make a lot of noise. Sorry. So again, I apologize for interruptions. Wanted to turn off the noisy heater. So, when we have a realization of Krishna or an experience of Krishna consciousness, the quality of Krishna, his qualities, which can mean, for example, his opulences, his qualities, but also just the quality of Krishna, the quality of spiritual reality is so powerful, so beautiful, so superior to any material experience that we join the Hare Krishna movement. So it's the fact that we are doing this right now, the fact that even though most of us were born in a very different situation, and yet we are reading the Bhagavatam, we are talking about Krishna, we are encouraging each other to serve Krishna. Why are we doing that? So materially, it is not, of course one can try to give some cheap psychological explanation, but those don't go very far. So really, we are doing this right now because we have experienced the qualities of Krishna. And here it said Namani, the names of Krishna. Why do we chant Hare Krishna? Not just because it's a rule, because there are millions of rules that we don't follow, because we don't belong to different organizations, or we don't live in certain countries, or we're like, if you want to go water skiing, there's certain rules you have to follow. But if you're not water skiing, you don't follow those rules. And so we are specifically following these rules and engaging in these activities because we have experienced the glory of God, Krishna. So when we're doing this, so basically, grammatically, this verse is saying that when you do certain things, then something else happens. And so what happens is, Krishnasya anusmaranti cha, you constantly remember Krishna. Anu means repeatedly. Smaranti, people who are engaging their activities according to Krishna's instructions. People who take seriously what Krishna has taught in the Bhagavad Gita and in other literatures, what his authorized devotees have taught. People that take this seriously, they serve Krishna. And while you're doing this, while you are engaging in serving Krishna, you naturally experience Krishna's qualities and Krishna's names. I mean, for example, the universal expression in ISKCON is Hari Bol. Like, Hari Bol means like, what did you mean? Or Hari Bol, see you later. Or Hari Bol, nice to see you here. So it actually means everything, but at least it has the word Hari in it. So Grananti Guna Namani Krishnasya, of Krishna, Anusmaranti Cha. So you understand Krishna's qualities and his names, and you remember him at every moment. And so that happens when we follow Krishna, when we act in this world according to Krishna's instructions, his teachings. So we'll go to the next verse. This is Narada Muni speaking to Vyasa. And then he just glorifies Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam. So we know Om Namo Bhagavate, unto Bhagavan, Vasudevaya, obeisances unto Vasudev. Tubhyam means unto you. So this is very personal. This is very interesting because Narada is actually speaking to Vyasa. So imagine I'm talking to you and then I just say, obeisances unto you, Krishna. I'm talking to someone else now. So this is ecstatic. It's if you read carefully what the verse, Narada's in ecstasy because he's talking to somebody. He's talking to Vyasa, but suddenly he actually is doing what he said happens. He said that when you're serving Krishna according to his instructions, you just naturally take on his names, and now it happened to Narada. Because Narada is serving Vyasa, and he just has this ecstatic exclamation. He just exclaims, Om Namo Bhagavate, obeisances unto the Lord, Tubhyam, unto you. Vasudevaya, unto Vasudev, Dhimahi, I meditate. This is, of course, a Gayatri word. Let us meditate. He says, obeisances unto the Lord, let us meditate unto you, upon you, Vasudeva, Pradyumnaya. These, of course, just names of Krishna. Pradyumnaya, Anirudhaya, Namak, obeisances, Sankarshanaya cha, to Sankarshana. So this is Narada Muni saying that something happens when you serve Krishna, and then it happened to him. So he's ecstatically glorifying the Lord here by his different names. And it is very ecstatic just to chant the names of Krishna. So the next verse is, he says, Iti. Actually, he was not only glorifying Krishna, he was giving an example. Because the next verse is Iti. He says, thus, in other words, what I just did, thus, Murti abhidhanena mantra-murti mamurti kang yajate. So by chanting the names of the Murti, of the forms of the Lord, Murti means a form. Of course, in our Vaishnava culture, it comes to mean specifically the deity form in the temple, but it has a more general meaning. It simply means a form, a personal form. So thus, iti murti abhidhanena, by chanting, by calling the names of the Lord in his different forms, mantra-murti mamurti kang yajate yagya purusham. It's very interesting. One worships, here the verb is yaj, from which we get yajna, or yagya. So it can mean to sacrifice to offer to, or simply to worship, since sacrifice is, of course, a form of worshiping. So yajate yagya purusham. So one worships the Lord's form as mantra. So we know the word murti. We have deities in the temple, but here, mantra-murti, the holy name of God, is itself a deity. It is a deity. It is a worshipable deity. I remember when, I think the day after I took sannyas, I took sannyas on Lord Narasimha's appearance day in 1972. Wow. So in 2 years it'll be 50 years of sannyas. Amazing. So, we were walking on the beach with Prabhupada, and I mean, even nowadays there's so many stories devotees tell, like Prabhupada said this or that. I mean, things that sometimes he actually said it, and often he didn't. Or, even worse, they hear all kinds of things in India, or from devotees that have been to India. So, I remember Vishnu Jana asked Prabhupada, someone had told him, and of course, not that he believed it, but he just wanted to clear it with Prabhupada. So Vishnu Jana said to Prabhupada, someone told me that for a sannyasi, the danda is a form of Vishnu. It's a deity, so we can worship, when we're traveling, we can worship our dandas as a form of Vishnu. Prabhupada kind of laughed at that and said, no, that your danda is not a deity of Vishnu. But then I think Satsarupa, who had taken sannyas with me, he asked Prabhupada, should a sannyasi travel with deities? And Prabhupada said, no, Lord Chaitanya traveled, and Lord Chaitanya didn't take deities with him. So for, let's say, for someone who, for some reason, is not worshiping the deity form, or even if you are in a moment when you're not with the deity, there's the mantra-murti. Krishna's holy name is a deity, the worshipable form of Krishna. And if we understood that more clearly, we might chant better japa, or we might chant japa. So chanting Krishna's holy names is deity worship in itself. That's the point I wanted to make. And so it said, mantra-murti amurtikam. So Krishna has the mantra form, even though he has no form, meaning, of course, as Prabhupada translates it, the Lord who has no material form. No material form, but Krishna has forms as his holy name and as the deity in the temple. So, by calling out the names of the Lord's different forms, one is worshiping the Lord in the form of mantra, and even the Lord has no material form, and one is worshiping yajate yajna purusham, one is worshiping, or the worship person, literally, yajna purusha. One worships the worship person. So what does it mean, the worship person? It means the person who was the object of all our sacrifices, the person who was the object of all our worship. So you're hitting the target. When we worship Krishna, we are worshiping the person who should be worshipped, who is meant to be worshipped, the person who, by worshiping, one achieves perfection. That is the yajna purusha. And sasamyak darshanak puman. And a person who does that, a person who does worship the Lord in this way, according to this verse, is samyak darshana, literally has perfect vision. That person is seeing things as they really are. complete, perfect vision of reality by seeing that I have to worship Krishna with all my activities. I should be really worshiping Krishna. That is to see reality. So, the next verse. So imang swanigamang brahmana vetyam anushtitam adan me jnanam aishwaryam sasmin bhavam chakeshava. So everything that Narada has been teaching Vyasa, he calls swanigamam. Nigamam, Prabhupada translates here as confidential knowledge of the Vedas in respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gama, from the verb gam or ga, means to go. That's where we get the English go. So ni means within, and so nigama literally means going within. In this case, going within reality, not remain on the surface. On the surface, we just see a bunch of material bodies walking around. We see, look in the mirror, we see our own body. That is the surface. That's not the reality. It's like someone may see a package and they don't know there's food inside. Someone may be hungry and they say, well, this is just plastic, or it's a can, or it's a box, and I can't eat a can, I can't eat a box or plastic, but inside is the actual food. And so nigama literally means that which goes within, that which goes beneath the surface to get to reality. And it has become a word for Shastra. And so swanigamam means Krishna's own Shastra. In other words, Krishna's own teaching. Because the very word Shastra, the Sanskrit verb shas, means to command or instruct. And so Shastra has a sense of an instrument or something that does something. And so Shastra is an object that teaches. It's an instrument for imparting knowledge, in this case spiritual knowledge, and authorized teachings. So here also we have another word, nigama. So swanigamam, imang swanigamang brahman avetya. So having studied. These words are very interesting. So avetya, in a sense, is actually very similar to the word nigama. There's a lot going on here in the Sanskrit. If someone understands Sanskrit, the Bhagavatam is brilliant. There's a lot going on here because Narada says, having understood, or Prabhupada translates it, knowing it well. That's the word. Where does the word avetya come from? Ava means down, like avatara, crossing down, and itya means going. E is a verb meaning to go, which we still have in Spanish and Portuguese. Ir, it's the same word in Spanish, Portuguese. It means to go. So going down. So nigama means going within, and avetya means the same thing. Going. So it's like a book. So it's almost like saying having understood the book of understanding. So it's very interesting in Sanskrit. So I'll go back now for enough Sanskrit for now. So imang swanigamang brahman avetya madanushtitam. So having understood and followed, having understood, and so this is very interesting. Narada says, anushtita, I followed it and then I understood it, or I understood it and then I followed it, whatever. So stita, it just means standing within something. Stita, situated, and anu means continuously. So the word for anustita, which Prabhupada translates executed, in other words, madanustitam was executed by me, madanustitam, it literally means that you stand in something, you take your stand in something and you stay there. So to stand in Shastra, to stand in Krishna's teachings, or in English we might say to stand by it, or to stand for it. You stand for something, you stand by something. So we have the same idea in English, even the word stand from the Sanskrit stan. And so this, Krishna's own teaching, I stood by it. I stood for it. I stood within it. And I understood it. And so when I was in that condition, that was my situation, that I'd done these things, then Adan me jnanam. Keshava gave me knowledge. Adan me jnanam, Keshava, Lord Krishna gave me knowledge. Aishwaryam, and opulence, and bhavam, Prabhupada translates intimate affection and love. Again, bhava literally means a state, like a state of being, a particular condition, but it can mean a mental condition, and it comes to mean in Sanskrit a state of ecstasy. Anyway, won't go into all that, but so bhava, ecstasy. So Keshava gave me knowledge, opulence, and love for himself. Swasmin, love in himself. So Keshava gave me all these things. And so where did all this come from? All these supreme gifts? Because I faithfully stood within the Lord's teaching. Just being very literal here. I faithfully stood within the Lord's understanding. And because Krishna is omniscient, Krishna knows everything. If Krishna sees things a certain way, that's the way it is. So I faithfully stood in Krishna's teachings. I stood by it. I understood it. Then Keshava gave me all these supreme gifts, knowledge, opulence, and love for himself. So Narada is giving this intimate account of how he became Krishna conscious. And then I believe this is the last verse of this chapter, so we'll end if it is. Twamapi, which means like you too. So Narada's spoken so much about his own life, and now he says to Vyasa, you too, you also. Or as they say in England, and you. So Twamapi adabra shruta. So Narada here addresses Vyasa as adabra shruta. Shruta, of course, means Vedic literature, which is heard. And dabra in Sanskrit means very little, meager, not very much. And so adabra means, as Prabhupada translates it here, vast. In other words, it's not a little bit, it's a lot. So that's adabra. Shruta. And so he says to Vyasa, you have heard Shruta in the sense that you have studied the Vedas. You have a vast knowledge of the Vedas. And Vishrutam vibho samapyate yena vidang bubhutsitam prakyahi. So he's saying prakyahi, that's the verb here. He's commanding his disciple Vyasa, prakyahi, Prabhupada describes it, translates it here, describe. It really means directly explain and describe. Kya by itself means like to tell something. Then akyahi means to explain, and pra-akyahi, so there's two prepositions, meaning like directly explain, describe this. So it's a, in Sanskrit the verb is interesting. It's a very strong verb. He's saying directly describe or explain Vishrutam, that which has been heard, Vibho, from the Almighty. That which has been heard, Vibho, from the Almighty. And Vishrutam also means, it's interesting because it also means famous. V means wide, so widely heard. Vishrutam, so it's a word for famous. If you say that a person in Sanskrit is Vishruta, it means they're famous. The person is widely heard about. And so here, Prabhupada says, have heard, so it can mean directly. Because before, Vyasa was a little too indirect. That was the whole problem. That's why Vyasa was unhappy. That's why Narada had to come and teach him, because Vyasa had written so many, or not written, had composed so many indirect literatures. So now he's saying prakyahi, directly explain that the famous teachings of the Almighty, or that which is widely heard about, that which is heard from the Almighty, and samapyate jena vidang bubhutsitam. And jena, by this hearing, something is achieved, and that is those who are wise, vidang, literally of the knowers, that which they want to understand. This is actually anyway, just hang in there just one more second. The Sanskrit here is very interesting and complex. So bubhutsita means that which they want to understand. It's from the word buddhi. The word buddhi or bud, which means to understand. And so here, bubhutsitam, that which one seeks to understand. So wise people that care about knowledge, people that that know that one should know that knowledge is important. So by hearing from the Lord, they achieve what they always wanted to understand. So explain that, because that's what intelligent people want to know. That's the idea. Speak to intelligent people, speak to wise people, and tell them what they really want to know, which is the absolute truth, the glories of the Lord. Don't compromise. And so Dukkar Muhur Arditat Manang Sanklesha Nirvanang Ushanti Nanyata. So Ushanti, it actually means they consider, the wise people consider that for those souls who are suffering, souls in pain, Ardita means really in pain, really suffering. So those souls who are suffering from miseries, and muhur always. So this is very strong language, that wise people understand, or they consider that for souls who are always in anguish, always suffering from so many miseries, this is the nirvana, which means the way to, just completely stop sanklesha, all the troubles of life. Sanklesha. Every word here is significant. Sang means completely. All of our troubles. That this is the nirvana. This is the freedom from sanklesha, all our troubles. Nanyata means, and you're not going to get there any other way. Ta here means manner, like the way in which something is done, like yata, tata, and anyata, otherwise. You cannot achieve this otherwise. If we don't become Krishna conscious, even if we go all the way up to the Brahmajyoti, as the Bhagavatam says, aruhya krichena, with so much trouble, one rises, arucha krichena, parang padang, to the supreme place, which is the spiritual platform. But the impersonal, it's parang padam, in the sense that you've gone to the spiritual world, but you're just in the rays of the Brahmajyoti. You didn't actually land on a spiritual planet. So aruhya krichena parang padang tata patantyada. Then people fall down. They was, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, I believe, verse 3 and 4, that with so much trouble one rises to an impersonal platform where you're sort of free from your bodily miseries, but then they fall down again because anatrata jushmanam, because they did not respect, they did not honor the Lord's feet. In other words, they did not serve the Lord. They did not respect God. Aruja kritrena parang padang tatak patanti adhak. Nadrata. Nadrat means they did not respect. Jushmarangraya, your feet, Krishna. So here it said, this is very strong, there are 3 words here in this one sentence talking about suffering. So it really, this verse is really making the point. Dukkhair, by miseries, muhur, always, Arditatmana, souls who are always in pain because of the miseries. You can stop all these troubles. You can stop all these troubles by simply dedicating yourself to hearing about Krishna. And Nanyata, there is no other way. What's that verse that Harinama, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nastyeva, 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 Gatir, Anyata. It's the same word, Anyata. Anyata literally means otherwise. So just as there is Kalo Nastyeva, Nastyeva, there's no other way, otherwise, Anyata. So here again, Nanyata. This is the way to do it. Without love of God, we're not really going to fix it. We are not really going to permanently stop our troubles. This is what we need to do. And therefore, Narada tells Vyasa, you need to get to work here and present literature which directly glorifies Krishna, and help people, save the world by spreading the glories of Krishna. And that, of course, is exactly what all of us should be doing. So, thank you. I'm going to see if there are any questions now. Let's see. Well, looks like there are a few questions. Not too many, so don't panic. There aren't too many questions. Is it... here are the questions. In verse 1537, Narada glorifies Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Niruddha, and Sankarshan. Is there a distinction between these forms? Yes. They are different personalities of Godhead. They're all Krishna. They're all God. Krishna expands himself. We hear a little bit about... Vasudeva, it's often said that when Krishna left Vrindavan and went out to fight against the Asuras, that he was manifesting the Vasudeva form. And of course, it's significant that Krishna, outside of Vrindavan, of course in Vrindavan he's known as Nanda Nandana, or Jashoda Nandana, the son of his adoptive parents, foster parents, Nanda and Jashoda. But Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So when Krishna leaves Vrindavan, he's acting in his Vasudeva form. Even legally, he was the son of Vasudeva. So he's Vasudeva. And as far as Pradyumna also appears in Krishna Leela, as we know, toward the end of the 10th canto, and Aniruddha. So we get some idea of the personalities that Krishna manifests in these forms in the Bhagavatam. How should we manage the tension between presenting Krishna consciousness according to people's level of understanding or interest with the desire and need to present the highest truth? That is the art. Krishna says, karma sukoshalam. In the Gita, this is the art of all work. So that takes some skill and spiritual realization, because there is a way to do it. There definitely is a way to do it. And if we desire strongly enough to present Krishna consciousness to people according to their level, but also powerfully and somewhat directly, then there's a way to do it. It requires intelligence, it requires spiritual intelligence, and even you have to be interested in the people you're talking to. It can't be just a monologue. We actually have to talk to people, and we have to know who we're talking to. But yes, the more we advance in Krishna consciousness, the more we can do that. So as far as I can see, unless I'm not seeing it, that's the last question. So anyway, I hope everyone is staying safe. We're still dealing with this pandemic all over the world. So I pray that all the Vaishnavas are taking proper measures, not being foolish, and not trying, as Prabhupada said, to take service from Krishna by putting yourself in harm's way, putting yourself in danger, thinking that Krishna is your servant and will come to rescue you. We do our best to stay out of danger. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, there still is danger, but that doesn't mean we don't put ourselves in danger. So everyone should keep safe and do all the right things, and hopefully we will all get through this together. So, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully we'll all be together again next Sunday. Hare Krishna.